Dreamer. Welcome back to another episode of the Phoenix Podcast with me, Jennifer Coffey, as you and I work together to go from where we are now and to appreciate where we are now, but to also excitedly work towards going where we want to be, where we're intending to be, where we're meant to be. Today, we're going to talk about a very cliched topic, but in the hopes that we transform it a little bit so that it doesn't feel so cliched and so that it doesn't feel like so much work. And that is, as you already know, if you read the title to this episode, this whole idea of living like you're dying. It is the theme of songs and poems and books, living every day like it's your last. It is a very romantic concept, isn't it? And I'm sure you've thought of it, right? What would I do if I knew this was my last day? Kind of a dark question, right? Because it implies that you're soon to be dying. But it puts your brain and your thoughts, it kind of jolts them a little bit, doesn't it? And make you think outside of the kind of mundane day-to-day thoughts that you have. And okay, well, if I knew this were my last day alive, what would I do? And in an odd way, it's kind of fun. It's almost that same, what would I do if I won the Mega Millions kind of mental exercise. As someone who is kind of always thinking about, self-improvement, or because she doesn't really like that phrase, evolving your life in such a way that it is more fulfilling. It is, yes, a very fun topic, but one that the more you think about isn't sustainable. So I'm here to kind of not poo-poo the idea, but deconstruct it and then rebuild it a little bit. So stick with me. We're going to start, of course, with a quote, one that's going to help, I hope, frame all of this in a context that you can come back to when needed. And our quote today is from Norman Cousins, and it goes like this. Death is not the greatest loss in life. The greatest loss is what dies inside us while we live. Let's hear it again. Death is not the greatest loss in life. The greatest loss is what dies inside us while we live. Here's a truth that we all know, but we don't say all that often. But it's true, as truths are. All of us will meet the same fate. All of us. Everyone who has ever existed has met the same fate. We're all going to die. And even when I say that, and I know it's true, when I say it out loud, it feels like I'm swearing. It feels like blasphemy. We're all going to die. And yet we know it's true, right? I'm simply stating a fact. But most of us, understandably, go through our day-to-day lives ignoring that fact. Okay. But when you think about it, we're almost living in a weird denial of it. Living our day-to-day life as though we have a million more days. As though some of the small things mean a lot more than they actually do. It's easy to get caught up in that. I mean, how are we supposed to live in the present? It's what all the wellness coaches say, right? Myself included. Live in the now, be present. Every second is a gift. It's true. And if we do that, well, we detach a little bit from this truth that we're all going to die. Instead of hearing that and letting it make you shudder, instead of hearing that and letting it take you into thoughts of loss or losing others or how others might react when you die. If we can accept it as the truth that it is, how can we release a little bit in the day-to-day some of the pressures that we allow ourselves to apply to ourselves in the day-to-day? So as a very general statement, when somebody says, live every day like it's your last, as great as that is, you're not going to quit your job every day, are ya? You're not going to do the things that you would do if it were your very last day. We know this. So instead of trying to live every day like we're dying, which would compel us to sit in every second and savor so much and talk to our friends and families about how much we love them, almost to an extent where people would think you were mad. Instead of doing that, how can we infuse elements of living like we're dying every day so that it feels more like we're truly living every day? With that in mind, I've got some ideas. So in order to play with these ideas, we do have to talk a little bit about what we would do for real if we thought we were going to die today. Okay, so the awful truth comes down. You've got 24 hours to live. After you freak out about that, what would you do? I thought about it and I picked 5 things that I think most of us immediately would say that we were going to do. But then we're going to turn that around and instead think of ways that we can infuse that idea into the day-to-day so that you can live every day a little bit like you're dying. First up, I don't know too many people who, if they found out had 24 hours left, wouldn't say that they were going to quit their jobs. I mean, again, it's the same thing if you won the Powerball. Peace out, boss, right? And hopefully you would use nice language, correct? So you're going to quit your job on that last day, right? I don't imagine many of us, no matter how much we love our job, are going to go in and spend at least 8 of those 24 hours working. Now, if we're truly going to live like we're dying, we quit our jobs. Not so practical. You still got to pay taxes. You still have to put food on the table. You still have to pay your bills. You still want to have money to do the things that you love to do because you're not dying in 24 hours. So where's the middle ground? The middle ground, my friends, is to please not take it as seriously. I mean, this one I know is easier said than done. But let's say if you had 24 hours left to live and for some weird reason you decided to go to work, how would you be at work? Would you let little comments get to you? Would you answer every email immediately? Would you agree to work 2, 3, 5 hours longer than you're supposed to be working that day in the hopes that maybe your boss will acknowledge your extra work? Or would you instead see your job as a means to support your life outside of work and not let work be your life? When I say it, you're probably thinking, yeah, of course. I know I'm supposed to do that. And yet most of us still take the extra meeting. We still say yes when we want to say no. We still accept the extra work of someone who doesn't work there anymore, or the work of someone who's doing less than dialing it in. And to be clear, I'm not suggesting that you just dial it in. But what I am suggesting is that occasionally throughout the day, you ask yourself, will this matter on my deathbed? Would this matter to me if it were my last 24 hours? You still got to go to work, but can you work differently, knowing that you are going to die one day? Okay, what else would we do if we knew we were going to die soon? Me, I'd probably go on a pretty big spending spree. I mean, I wouldn't spend the whole day at the mall, as much as I love King of Prussia Mall. But I would, well, I can think of a few things right off the top of my head that I would love to just like hold in my hand or know was mine and 24 hours later, gift to my daughter, right? Or I'd splurge at some fancy restaurant that, I'm not necessarily going to eat at every single day because it's just so expensive. I'd probably spend, or at the very least, and actually this isn't the least at all, I know that I would spend a great deal donating to charities that I care about. And if you know me, by the way, it's almost always an animal welfare charity. Now, obviously, again, we can't take our entire bank account, our retirement savings, and just blow it all in one day. What? I'm supposed to be living like I'm dying. No. But instead, can we give ourselves permission to treat ourselves and use the hard-earned money that we have in even the smallest ways to say, I work hard and I deserve to have this money give me something back again. Now, again, I know what the state of the economy is. I know that people are scared. I'm scared too. And no, again, I'm not saying you go out and you buy that tennis bracelet right away. Of course, you know I love my cubic zirconia anyway. But for all of the talk about skipping your coffee each day so that you can save a little bit more, if going to that cafe and giving yourself that little sweet treat makes you feel special, if it makes you pause and reflect on your day, if you take that sip and go, that tastes good, and it's nice to hold it in my hand and hear the ice shake, if it brings you joy, it's okay. And why on earth are we scrimping and saving and denying ourselves every bit of pleasure so that hopefully when we're in our 70s or beyond, we can maybe enjoy a little bit of a splurge? It's okay to splurge a little bit now. No, don't blame me if you go and open up a credit card and max it out. That's not what I'm saying. But when you're hesitating a little bit on whether or not to buy that nice dessert at the end of that meal, say to yourself, I work hard. Am I really going to regret the strawberry shortcake on my deathbed? I know you won't. Okay, this one's a little bit more personal. So I don't know necessarily that you would do the exact same thing, but I think that there's probably a modification, a spin on this that you would do if you knew your days were numbered and that number was very small. If I had, this one would probably require a little more than 24 hours, but if I had a couple of days, I would take the people who are nearest and dearest to me and I would put them on a plane and we would fly to Colorado, to my favorite little mountain town. You've heard me talk about it, Ouray. And we would go in a Jeep to Imagine Pass, and I would sit there with the people I love the most, and we would just take in the beauty. Listen to the wind whipping around, cuddle in blankets, and watch the sunset at almost 14,000 feet. If I had the time, even if I had to be carried up there, that's where I would want to spend some of my last minutes. Now, some of you, maybe your Ouray is the ocean. It could be your lazy boy in your living room. It could be the Eiffel Tower. It could be a creek or a brook that ran in your backyard when you were a child and you used to go there to daydream and escape. If you have that place that you would, in a hurry, go to, with or without loved ones, if you knew your minutes were very limited, can you plan a trip there now? You can't go today, I know that. But I can tell you this, anytime I have the opportunity within the span of a year, I make sure I get my closest loved ones to Colorado. And depending on the year and my circumstances, that trip has been either very lean, staying in the tiniest of motel rooms or camping. And some years it's been a little bit more luxurious. Some years it was a 16-hour car drive with just my daughter and I, 2 nights, and then the drive back. And some years it's been the quickest plane ride and nice accommodations and 6 nights there. It changes, but it's always on the agenda because I always want to have a fresh memory of being in that place. Now, if you can't make your favorite place a fresh memory because of time constraints or budget constraints, I can almost guarantee you there's a live webcam there. Can you visit it via webcam? Can you find photos and videos of it on Pinterest and YouTube? Can you visually visit your happy place every month, every week, once a year? If you can do it, do it. And now it's easier to access those places than ever. Now, on that same note, your favorite place in the whole wide world, let's think about your favorite people. If I go to Uray, I try to bring as many of my beloveds there as I can. Well, if we knew that we were going to be dying soon, we would probably get on the phone or walk into the next room if that person who means so much to you is right there, and you would tell them how much you love them. I would make sure I made it to Gabby as quickly as I could to remind her that she's the reason I'm here and that I'll always be there for her, even when I'm not physically here for her. That her soul and my soul are always enmeshed, whether it's in this life, the next, or any of the infinite parallel dimensions that exist. We will always be together. Now, I don't tell her that every single day. What about my husband? I would rush over to him, give him the biggest kiss and hug, and tell him that I wish we had had so much more time in this lifetime to be together, but assure him that I'll find him in the next. What about my best friends? I'd call them up. I'd thank them for making me always feel like I'm not alone, even when I'm physically alone. I'd thank them for the laughter. I'd thank them for being there for me and listening to my crazy ideas. Am I going to do that every single day? No. They would think I was mad. And also, it would be a great occupation of my time because I love a lot of people. Instead, my suggestion is to always make sure that your last exchange with the people that you love, the most recent exchange with the people that you love, leaves a good memory. Now, this is also kind of morbid and dark, but we never know when we get into a car or a plane or, for heaven's sakes, walk out the front door. We don't know if we're coming back. We don't know if something tragic will happen. We just kind of count on the fact that we'll be back. And when we say goodbye to our friends or our parents or our spouse or our children, we probably do say, I love you. And that's enough. But if you're in a situation where likely the last words you're saying to them before you leave the house or hang up the phone, if that's their last memory, what kind of memory would that be? And if it's one that is a little bit negative or sad, can you take the extra moment to see if you can't turn that around a little bit so that if, heaven forbid, this day is your last, it can at least be a better memory for them. In that way, you're saying thank you and goodbye every time you say goodbye to them. All right. This last one, good news, is easy-ish and is something that you can do today, even if it isn't your last day. And I really hope it's not, to be very clear. I know that if I knew this were my last day, I would care a hell of a lot less about what other people thought. Now, hear me out on this one. I'm always preaching that you should care a lot less what other people think. And I can confidently say, as a now 50-year-old woman, that I do care a hell of a lot less about what people think of me than I did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and certainly 30 years ago. But ego always creeps in, doesn't it? And ego, that very superficial part of us, really doesn't like to be doubted, insulted, looked down upon, spoken to passive aggressively. And so it does affect us, even if we are the most zen, enlightened being on the planet. When we feel ourselves stung by the arrows of what other people say or think or don't say or don't think, when we feel that sting, can we remind ourselves, okay, if this were the last day, would it matter? Now, if it were your last day, you might actually respond with something that isn't quite so nice. And I am not advocating that. But instead, can we go, oh, it just doesn't matter because we're all going to end up in the same place with a bunch of headstones. And I know how valuable, how worthy I am. If that's what you're going to think on your last day, tell me, how is that not any less true on today than it is on your last day? It's just as true today. And your ability to dust your shoulders off is just as strong. We all have those moments of anger or vengefulness, wanting to make them hurt as much as they hurt you. And by the way, I hope all of this is foreign to you, but I suspect it's not, right? Sometimes even our own family members can get at us in ways that no one else can. But if you were living like you were dying just a little, it wouldn't matter as much, would it? Because you got too much living to do. Well, here's the great news. This is one that you can do in the exact same way today as you can when it's your last day. And start to practice just not giving a damn. That, my friend, is how you light a spark that turns into a bonfire of self-love, of self-gratitude, and believe it or not, sparks a bonfire that helps you stoke the love that you have for others and seeing the good in them. And there's nothing bad about starting that now. It's still going to get to you sometimes. The comment, the email, the glance, the non-invitation. And when it happens, remember, might be my last day and I just don't care. And then move on and repeat the practice because practice makes us better. I'm sure you've got a lot of ways that you could think of how you'd spend that last day. It's okay to think about that. Don't be scared because it's not going to bring about your early demise. If anything, it's going to help you find ways to embrace life and to not have what dies inside of you while you live. Instead, you'll find it's helping you give birth to new joys while you're living now. And it is never too late to start. So, we celebrate the fact that one day we'll die. Because when that day does come, we can look back and go, I had so much fun. Thank you so much for listening to me. No plug this week, except that I hope you'll sign up for my newsletter. That's www.jennifercoffey.com. There's a space there for you to sign up for the newsletter. I've got some pretty exciting announcements coming up soon. One is the destination for our next group travel trip, and another is a pretty exciting venture that I've got coming up. And I'm afraid if I say anything else, I'll let it all spill out, and I don't want that to happen. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next week. Have a great one.